Hello everyone. Sorry, I was messing around with some of my internet settings. That's why I was a minute late. Please forgive me. Actually, let me go here. I am the Goldman, and today we are going to do a tier list. How's everyone doing today? Let's go to the chat. I did change some of my settings, so I think I'm right now streaming in 30 frames per second. Can I change it midstream? I'm gonna change it and see what happens. Apply. All right, let's go to the chat. I like these comments. Don't be too hard on season 3. Hey Goldman, how are you doing? I'm doing well, thank you for asking. I appreciate it. Is my shirt inside out? It is not. Sorry. I'm excited. I'm excited to do one of these tier lists. I haven't done one in a while. If we don't rank the spies in the season 3 finale at least A, I'll be very sad. Do you guys even remember the name of the Mandalorian season 3 finale? Because I don't. It is... Oh my god. Okay, never mind. I think it's The Return. Sorry, I'm looking at the thing. It looks like this still hasn't fixed my streaming issues, so whatever. I'm excited to rank some episodes of The Mandalorian. The Rescue. Yeah, see, you guys got it. You guys know season 3 better than I do, because I don't. I met Katie O'Brien the other day, and she was a total sweetheart. Her episode better be top tier. Of season 3 episode, if people are going to tune in. My clones. I'm excited for this. I'll be honest. I've only watched season 3 once. So, and not everything here has the benefit of my full rewatch. I've rewatched Boba Fett, the first 2 seasons of The Mandalorian many times, and Ahsoka. Ezek, I appreciate it. You should do an Atla tier list when the live action show comes out. Of the 8 episodes? I think it's 8 episodes. Yeah, I probably will. I'm going to be covering the Avatar show as much as I've been doing with Star Wars, pretty much. It's a shame Netflix doesn't do week-to-week releases. So they'll probably just release the whole thing in a week, and I'll talk about it for 2 weeks. But I'll definitely be talking about that as well. Hello. I do miss the days when my stuff I've rewatched is the episodes I already love, so that probably wouldn't have started. God, this connection issue is terrible. I don't know why it does it. I need to talk tier list. Actually, I changed the let me make it a little bit more. Move this a little bit. So it's like that. There we go. Yeah. So here we have all the episodes of the Book of Boba Fett. By the way, this tier list is available in the description of the video. I was lucky, thank God, someone already made the tier list. I believe it's called Mandoverse Episodes Tier List Maker. So I didn't have to make this. So if you want to make your own list, then you can go down below and make said list. So I'm going to go in release order of the 39 episodes. So I'm going to go through Mandalorian Season 1, then Season 2, then the Book of Boba Fett, then Season 3, then Ahsoka. So that's the order I'm going to go in. So up first was... Oh my god, it doesn't even have it listed in order here. Oh, that's so annoying. Can I name the episodes in order just off of their image? I think I can. Alright, so up first I know is The Mandalorian. So this was the first episode of really original content on Disney Plus TV, right? Because I think this came out when The Mandalorian came out. Or when Disney Plus came out. The first episode of The Mandalorian, I don't think it has an official title, but they just call it The Mandalorian. That was a really good, fantastic way was going to do Star Wars content. That was my thoughts on the first episode. Sorry, I'm just fixing some settings here. There we go. Okay. So yeah, that is the first episode of the tier list. Up next, I believe, was The Child. I remember this episode was it wasn't fillery. The Mandalorian does more episodic storytelling, while I prefer something like Ahsoka that really just has one story across the season. And they kind of used this episode to fill the time a little bit, but it did grow the bond between Mando and Grogu. So I would put The Child probably in B tier. It was a fine episode. Wasn't like the most memorable one, but it did have the Mudhorn fight, and I thought that was a pretty big moment in the series. The third episode was The Mandalorian was the sin. I was right. Okay. Mando season 1 was S tier. It was pretty good. All right. So the sin. This episode was fantastic. I'm going to put that in A tier. By the way, the more left an episode is on the tier list, the better it will be. So yeah, the sin, that's when that's really where Mando's like first part of the character arc came to fruition, where the directing in this episode was just really good. One of my favorite shots in the whole series is when Mando is just sitting there and he's like putting the little ball back on the lever and he's just staring at it for like 10 seconds and then you realize he makes the switch and he's going back for Grogu. That was some fantastic storytelling. And just the whole escape sequence with him and Grogu leaving Navarro for the first time. And it's so funny to think how much Navarro has changed in the past 3 seasons of the show. So that was really well done. That was just a really good episode. Genuinely gives me dread. The Mandalorian was praised initially for being a standalone adventure, and now it's a verse. I can get that. It's just an easy way. I'll do them like week to week, but I have more rankings planned in the future. Up next is Sanctuary. So this was Cara Dune's first episode. And regardless of anyone's opinion on her, I like the introduction of Cara Dune, but I'm just not a big fan of these like in the Mandalorian and a lot of lag. I don't know what to fix. How bad is the lag? Like, am I cutting out constantly? It annoys me that Deborah Chow did such a good job directing episodes 3 and 7, but did such a bad job directing Kenobi. All right, so there is bad lag. Cutting out for a bit. I can try and mess with some settings. I just don't know what the like core issue is. Lag is pretty bad. Okay, let me try and fix some things. Like I it's gone now. It's not too bad of lag. Okay. Just cutting here and there. Yeah, I don't know what the issue is. What if I did this? Like, I'm not a streaming expert, so I don't know what all these numbers mean. I just, like, look it up. How are there 39 episodes? So there's 24 episodes of The Mandalorian, 8 episodes of Ahsoka, and 7 episodes of the Book of Boba Fett. I did not like this episode at all. The guy's name, Taro Calican, he was so annoying. And it was just, the whole reason this episode existed was basically to set up Fennec to be a main character in the Book of Boba Fett, like 2 shows later. Lag again. Yeah, Gunslinger felt like a filler episode. It really did. It didn't, like, Taro Calican never showed up again. It's like, yeah, Fennec did, so, but the only reason this episode existed was really to establish Fennec. And I guess the overall threat of bounty hunters looking for Grogu. And yet teased Boba Fett. Woohoo. It's like they could have teased Boba Fett in other ways. So yeah, overall a pretty bad episode in my opinion. Up next was The Prisoner. Oh, this was a fun episode. Is it A tier? I'm going to put it in B tier. By the way, remember, the more left an episode is, the more I like it. So this was the criminal crew. We had Bill Burr's first interviewing with Bill Burr's character, the Purple Twi'lek, the Deveronian. I think those are the devil-looking people, and then there was the droid. I forgot all their names individually. But it was a fun episode. It wasn't great. Bill Burr's character going forward for his better appearance in season 2. So it wasn't a great episode, but it was fun. It was a fun episode. Not every episode needs to be perfect. I should probably put one of these in. I think I'm going to move this into S tier, to be honest. Because I was thinking about it, like, The Sin is one of my favorite episodes of the show, and if it's not an S tier, then what is? So I just briefly moved it to S tier. Episode 7, I believe it's called Redemption. These episode titles are really weird, right? Episode 7 is called Redemption. Oh, no, it's called The Reckoning. Episode 8 is Redemption. Okay. The Reckoning. Where is that here? Am I blind? Here. No, it's The Foundling. The Tragedy. The Believer. Blah, blah, blah. The Reckoning. This was a pretty good episode. I really liked the kind of 2-part finale of season 1. I'm going to put it into A tier. It was a really good episode. It had Quill's death, and I really think Quill's death is one of the most tragic deaths in Star Wars. He was just such a great character, and then I get this little notification on OBS that tells me when I have streaming issues, and like it's just appearing every few seconds now, and I just don't know what to do. I guess I'll just have to stick with it, I guess. I'll have to talk to someone. But anyway, and it did a great job setting up part 2, so I really like that as well. So yeah, A episode. And then that leaves us with the finale, which was called Redemption. These episode titles were weird. Like, what does redemption mean? Like, is Mando redeeming himself for what? That was an S tier episode. I loved the season 1 finale. The way it wrapped up everything. It wasn't too, like, grandeur. I don't think that's a word. It was really focused on giving Mando his character arc with the droids. Maybe that's why it was called Redemption, because IG-88 like redeemed droids in Mando's eyes. But the whole thing with IG-11, IG-11, that was really well done. The stuff with Gideon, and back then, like we had an expectation for Star Wars that it wasn't going to be so big. So like the final battle just outside the base was good. Like, but now we expect, all these huge battles to be great, and we criticize the limited budget of Star Wars TV. I think, but it didn't need to be. It knew its story, it knew its characters, and that's why I really liked it. Yeah, rip IG-11, yeah, until he came back in Season 3 for no reason. All right, so that is Season 1 of The Mandalorian. I have 2 in S, 2 in A, 2 in B. All the episodes that really mattered were really good, so... Up next, we have Season 2. I know Episode 1 is called The Marshal, and this is an easy S-tier entry. This episode was just so much fun. One could argue it was a little bit filler-y. By the way, I'm going to move this back down to A tier. Like, I just realized it's probably not S tier. I'm sorry, I'm making decisions in my head. This is a fluid list. I'm not perfect. I'm going to make some changes as I go. But yeah, The Marshal was such a good episode. It was so fun. Cobb Vanth was a great character. I feel like it did what Episode 4 wanted to do. Like, Episode 4 had this, like, contained story with helping people, but it wasn't that great. Wow, this episode was just so much fun. And I'll never forget how, against the battle against the Great Dragon, the aspect ratio changed. It's the only time Disney Plus Star Wars TV has done that, and I thought it was just really well done. It was engaging. The characters were good. So yeah, it was just a almost perfect episode. I loved it. I love it so much. Up next, we have is the spider episode that is called The Passenger. So this was the one with Frog Lady, and I do love Frog Lady as a character. She was great. Now I could have gone without the whole like fight. The episode had some like decent action, but wasn't spectacular. So The Passenger, where is it here? X were great in like the Snowy Planet, but it was just an overall fine episode. So that was The Passenger. 2 that exists is that the episodes are like the first 5 episodes are pretty repetitive. Mando wants something. There's someone that can give it to him. But in order for him to get what he wants, he needs to help them on some sort of mission. So this one, we meet Bo-Katan for the first time, who we all know becomes a very important character later on. We meet some of the other Mandalorians for the first time, outside of the ones that were in Mando's own clan. How do I feel about this episode? I think the Heiress is a B episode. I think I like it more than the Child, but overall it was okay. It was fun action, nothing great. Sometimes an episode can be in B tier, but not have any flaws. Like it did its job. It just didn't do anything like spectacular. It's not the most memorable episode, but it certainly belongs in B tier. Up next, I believe, is The Siege. That is season 2, episode 4. This was a fun episode. I'm gonna put it in B tier as well. I feel like it was more fun than The Heiress, but not as fun as The Prisoner. We got to see the gang back together from season 1. I believe this is the only episode that Grief Karga was in season 1. Season 2, sorry. And then this was Cara Dune's first introduction back. This had just more fun action with the Empire than episode 3 of season 2 did. I like the characters more. I really like the season 1 crew. of Mando, Cara Dune, Grief Karga, IG-11. I know he's not in season 2, but I just liked that crew and Quill. And this was probably the closest we got to like those season 1 vibes. And there was some great world building here with Navarro that I really appreciated. So overall, the Siege was a fun episode. It wasn't great. Put it in B tier. Up next, we have the Jedi. So this was Ahsoka's episode. I'll probably put it in the bottom end of A tier. Seeing Ahsoka in live action for the first time was great. I thought Rosario Dawson did a great job. And then this was another episode where Mando needed something, but in order to get what he wanted, he needed to help someone else. The fight between Ahsoka and Morgan was well done. Again, certain episodes really try to capture the vibe of the influences of Star Wars, and some do it better than most. Season 2 really did a good job with the Marshal of capturing like the Western feel, and then this episode captured the Eastern feel, the Eastern influences like Japanese culture, and I really like that. Just seeing, I remember Mando had the face off with that one guy, and then Ahsoka was fighting Morgan, and it's funny to see how much his sister. I don't know if I got that vibe. So yeah, to be at least top half of A tier. I think these other episodes are better, but the Jedi was certainly a good episode. Up next is it was what's his name? Robert Rodriguez's episode. The Tragedy. The Tragedy. I feel like I'm just stacking episodes into B tier because I really think the ending of season 2 was really well done. I'll probably put this in the beginning of C tier. It was a shorter episode that was really just action, and then Grogu gets stolen. It was a good moment. The episode wasn't like fantastic as a whole. It was basically just action until Grogu gets stolen, and then Mando go to find Cara Dune at the end. So yeah, it was a fine episode, good action, but there wasn't much of like character moments or whatnot. They did destroy the Razor Crest in this episode, and that was a huge shock. I was beyond shocked they did that. It's a good setup episode. Also, Razor Crest gets blown up. Yeah. So overall, it was a fine episode to see. Plenty of other episodes I'd rather rewatch. Up next, we have we have The Believer. And if you guys have watched my videos, you know how much I love this episode. And it is S tier, the best episode of The Mandalorian. Spoiler alert. Great character moments all around with Mando, with him taking off the helmet. The significance of that, just had a chance to find Grogu. The character arc it gave Mayfeld. Oh, such a perfect episode. Like, this is my go-to episode if I want to rewatch The Mandalorian. And guess what? It was the only episode that doesn't have 2. Your best episode was the one without Grogu. But man, this was such a good episode. The action was great. The whole setting was great. And it set up the finale, the rescue. But it's like, did the Book of Boba Fett ruin it? For me, it doesn't. For me, it was still a really engaging episode. I'd put it in S tier. It's not as good as The Believer, but it's still a really good episode. I mean, what can I say? A lot of the action was really well done. I like the set of the Imperial ship. I know it's not a Star Destroyer, but forgive me, I don't remember the names of all the classes of Imperial ships. And then, of course, the ending with Luke showing up. I know there's this revisionist history that, returning characters showing up is bad. It's like, no, it served the story and it did it really well. I feel like I'm one of the biggest defenders of The Mandalorian Season 2 now, where so many people are like, oh, it's nowhere near, but it was still a really great finale, and sure, if the Book of Boba Fett ruined it for you, I can't. Still a fantastic episode, and I love almost every second of it. Not as great as The Believer, but Season 2 really had a good conclusion to the season. All right. We got the 2 good seasons out of the way. Let's go to the Book of Boba Fett. I don't remember the episodes, like the names of each one. So, the Book of Boba Fett episodes. God, this show is so bad. It doesn't even have title for Chapter 7. All right, Episode 1, A Stranger in a Strange Land. Remember, this episode was just so uneventful. Like, nothing happened in this episode. Like, Boba Fett wakes up, we get a little bit of world building with the Tusken Raiders, and then he fights that 6-legged monster, and, like, that was the episode. I was like, this is such a weird way to start the season. It's like it felt like the first episode in the series was a little bit filler. And that was shit over the Sanctuary, but I didn't mind the flashbacks. I just wish they weren't flashbacks, and I wish it was still told in like the regular chronological order. So yeah, Stranger in a Strange Land was a pretty it was a bad start. Like, it wasn't horrendous, but it was a bad start. Up next, The Trials of Tatooine. So here is the one, like, good episode in the Book of Boba Fett. It's B tier. I'll put it there. Went nowhere. This episode did have some decent development with the character. And it was a longer episode. There was some really good action with the train sequence. And Boba Fett's interactions with the Tusken Raiders were great. And also the world building was really good in this episode. So I don't hate this episode. It's not great by any means, but it was still a fine episode. Some really good stuff here. So I'd give the Tribes of Tatooine, put it in the middle of B tier. I think that's fair. Episode 3, The Streets of Mos Espa. This was a bad episode. I'm not going to put it in F, but man, it was a bad episode. This was like where we really meet the biker gang people, and they were so weird. It just felt off. Like, I don't know. It just didn't. I get that Favreau and Filoni trying to go for these like retro feels, and those kids kind of had like an 80s vibe, but it just didn't work for me in the episode. They killed off the Tusken Raiders. I'll give that episode props for doing that. Like, that really shocked me, but it didn't do anything more than that. It was just like weird action sequence with the Major Domo and Boba Fett. Completely anticlimactic. Not a fan of that episode. Episode 4 is The Gathering Storm. So this is where most of the flashback takes place, where Boba Fett gets the Razor Crest back, how he finds Fennec. Like, fine episode. I'll put it at the bottom of C tier. Like, it had some cool moments, like seeing Boba Fett go into the Jabba's palace, and then like getting the I can't remember, Slave One back. And then like kills the Sarlacc for whatever reason. I'm like, okay, it was fine. This episode didn't do anything stupid to me. I think it had some questionable character moments. I remember conversations between Boba Fett and Fennec were not great. So yeah, it was not a good episode, but wasn't like that bad. Up next, now we have the 2 Mando episodes, right? Up next, we have The Return of the Mandalorian. It's just so weird how this show did such a poor job at developing Boba Fett, but in the one episode that was completely Mando focused, like, it did a really good job. I liked that episode a lot. I'm going to put it at the bottom of A tier. It has the things with Mando, the Armorer, and Paz Vizsla. That was a great sequence. And then Mando building the N1 Starfighter and he's going through the original path of the pod race. I thought that was really well done. They probably spent a little too much time on him building the N1 Starfighter, but the first half of the episode was great. And I love that ring plan. What do you think of him replacing the Razor Crest with the N1 Starfighter? I don't mind it. I don't mind it at all. It was cool. From the Desert Comes a Stranger. This was also like a good episode. And it wasn't just because Luke showed up and Ahsoka showed up, but it had like character moments, like it built stuff with Grogu. Now, you can criticize the show for it not being a Boba Fett episode. Well, then Cobb Vanth was in this episode, and there was some cool stuff. And there's like the one time Cad Bane looked cool in live action was in this episode. I don't think it's as good as The Return of the Mandalorian, but I'll probably put it at the beginning of B tier. It was nice. Luke still looks pretty good. Like, I know people love this shit on the CGI characters, but he did look good. Seeing him talk to Ahsoka it just warms my heart. Did it drag from the focus of Boba Fett? Yeah. But it was still a pretty good episode that set up the finale. Like, even for a show that did such a terrible job at developing its main characters, like, this episode got me hyped for the finale. Like, I was excited. And then of Honor, F, stinker, terrible, garbage finale. The storylines in a satisfying way. They botched the ending of the Mandalorian season 2, kinda, for a lot of people. Boba Fett didn't have like he defeated Cad Bane so easily. There's just nothing good about this episode. The The Rancor fight was like, oh, it's a Rancor, it looks cool. But no, like I hate this episode. I hate it. It is F tier, terrible, awful. Am I too harsh? Am I too harsh? I don't think I am. Like, that episode sucked. And I hated it. What do you guys think? Am I too harsh? It's a funny thing, I'm too harsh now. Wait until we get season 3. No, it deserves the hate. Yeah, that episode sucked, man. I was so excited. Anyway, now we're on to The Mandalorian season 3. God. Like, the first episode was so forgettable. Well, I mean, what happened? Like, Mando returns back with Grogu, and then he's sent on a mission. He goes to Navarro, helps them fight briefly, and then goes to see Bo-Katan. It's like, cool. It's like, oh, and I thought they were setting up some really cool character stuff, and they didn't even, like, remotely do that. So, yeah, D tier. I'd rather watch it than The Streets of Mos Espa, because at least it has characters that I like. But no, it was a bad episode and a terrible start to the season. Up next, The Mines of Mandalore. This episode was fine. It had some cool world building. I liked seeing Mandalore, and it looked pretty cool. But I'd rather watch the tragedy again. At least I had some pretty good action. But yeah, just like season 2, it's like, I know he steps into the water, and then we see, what was the name of that? The Mythosaur. It's like, oh, we see the Mythosaur, it's going to show up again. Nope. Okay, I'm a little harsh because I just really don't like season 3. But the episode was fine. It's like, not all of season 3 was terrible. The episode was okay. Up next, we have The Convert. Oh, this episode was so weird. So weird. In isolation, all the stuff with, what was his name? Dr. Parshing and the other woman, Kane, I think her name was. It was interesting, but it's like it had absolutely no relevance to the season. It's like it kind of set up how the Empire was still there, but man, it's just like, listen, I think this is an arc with her going back with the Mandalorian clan. I'll probably put it here. No, here in B tier. Like, it's an episode I can rewatch and appreciate the world building of the New Republic. The world building was definitely the episode. Just really peculiar stuff. So yeah, that is The Convert. Up next, we have The Foundling. And this episode was spent about saving the damn kid from a bird's nest. Right? That was the episode. And there was, like, nothing else important. We saw a flashback of Order 66. Oh, we saw Order 66 again for, like, the 6th time in 4 years. D tier. Honestly, I think I'd rather watch The Streets of Mos Espa, to be honest. I'll put it next to that one. That was a bad episode. And I'll put it ahead. At least this episode, like, had some cool Mandalorian action, like, I guess. And then, like, yeah, we saw Order 66, and sure, seeing Ahmed Best be a Jedi, especially the one that saved Grogu, was awesome. More so because I know Ahmed Best's story rather than the actual execution of that scene. But yeah, it was just like another pointless scene to just fill up the season. Season 3 should have been a movie. It really should have been a movie. There's so much shit you could cut out. 2.5 hours, easily. I should edit it myself. I mean, you could cut out almost all of episode 3. You can cut out almost all of this episode. Episode 4. You can cut out all of episode 6. So that means your episode 1 and 2 you could probably trim down. So you have episodes 1 and 2, 5, 7, and 8. It's like there's your season, there's your movie. Yeah, because Order 66 was overhyped. Because like, oh, we saw Order 66 again. It's like, yeah, we've done it so many times now. We get it. Episode 5, The Pirate. Okay, this was a fun episode. Was it great? No. But it had some pretty good action. Like, not even just serviceable action. This had some really cool action with them going back to Navarro. Like, I really liked that episode. I think this episode was the one with Zeb, right? Or was that later on? I think it was this episode. So that was cool. I'm gonna put it at the upper end of B tier. I really liked it. I don't think it's A tier worthy. Like, it's not an episode I would just like. I could rewatch anything that's an A tier. I could pretty much rewatch at any point. S tier is like just some of the best Star Wars that ever exists. B tier is like, it's a good episode, but I'm not in any rush to rewatch it. And I think that this episode had some good action. No character moments really, but it was fun. It was a fun episode. I put it in the upper echelon of B tier. Guns for Hire, people. Season 3, episode 6. Shitter. Is it worse than the finale of Boba Fett? You know, I'm going to say it is. I think this is the worst episode of the Mandoverse. Spoiler alert, I think it's the worst episode of the Mandoverse. Do I need to explain myself? Do I need to explain myself how bad this episode was? The whole shit with Lizzo and Jack Black and the droids. Waste of time. Complete waste of time. So bad. And then the story with the Darksaber. It's like, oh, Bo-Katan's now the ruler of it due to a technicality. This episode sucked. The action was even goofy. It's like, oh, you saw battle droids. Like, it looks so stupid. God, that was a bad episode. Yeah. Listen, at least but I think I could turn my brain off completely and somewhat enjoy it. Like this episode, I don't want to rewatch. I really think the next time I rewatch season 3, or when I rewatch season 3, getting through this episode is going to be a slog. Like, the only important parts of this episode are the last, 3 minutes. That's bad. What a terrible, terrible episode. Okay, now we got the 2-part finale of season 3. Episode 1 is The Spies. This one was fine. It had a really good ending. I don't think it's as good as it here. Seeing them all on Mandalore again was pretty cool. But it was fine. Like the Imperial Council, the Shadow Council, that was really cool. So yeah, I'd put the Spies in B tier. So yeah. And then we have the finale of season 3, The Return. I'll give it this. It had some really cool action. There were some really good shots with the Mandalorians, but it was so anticlimactic the way they resolved the whole Gideon storyline. That was terrible. I don't like it at all. Very disappointed with it. I think I was a lot harsher on it when it first came out, but it's more mid than bad. The season as a whole sucked, but the finale was just above sucking. It was mid. Gideon shouldn't have been in season 3. Yeah, it's introduce someone new. Finale was rushed, and Moff Gideon was trash. Yeah. I like the Shadow Council and the Praetorian Guards. Oh, yeah, the Praetorian Guards were cool, but they didn't look like the ones in The Last Jedi. The Mando season 3 and Boba Fett finale made me more mad. The season 3 finale left me more with apathy than anger. I was just really? This is the best you guys can do. So, yeah, the Book of Boba Fett into Mandalorian. And it's weird because the Book of Boba Fett is so tied into the Mandalorian, and then Ahsoka is really its own thing. But up next, we have Ahsoka. I haven't really thought about these episodes individually as much. Episode 1, Master and Apprentice. It was a bit of a slow start, I feel like. Master and Apprentice. I'd put it at the beginning of C tier. I think it did a good job at establishing the characters. Didn't do a great job. I thought they could have done so many things better, but it was a fine start. Actually, I'm going to put it at the bottom of... Put it here. A lot of my bias towards Ahsoka comes from me being such a big Rebels fan. So, yeah. Toils and Trouble. This episode was C tier. I would put this episode... It wasn't that good. I'd put it here. Most of the episode was devoted to the stuff on Corellia. It just wasn't so eventful. It didn't have that life that I usually liked. So, yeah, it was fine. Episode 3, Time to Fly. I thought this episode was fun. I think a lot of people say episode 3 was the worst of the season. Episode 3 was awesome. It's not great. It's not in the top tier of the season. But episode 3 was really good. Episode 1 might be better, But season 3 was just like really fun. I don't know. I liked the moments between Ahsoka and Sabine. I liked the action with the them fighting the other starfighters, and then Ahsoka being in space, and then the whales, the Purgle. Like that was quite cool. I don't know. I really like that stuff. So yeah, I'm gonna put it in B tier. Up next, we have Fallen Jedi. That is... This was a good episode. I'm going to put it S tier. This episode was really well done. Like, it was really well done. I think I like it more than the Marshal. Just like, maybe it's because I like the characters. But like Balin's... Everything with Balin was so good in this episode. People shit on the lightsaber fights. Like, I thought they were good here too. The backdrop of CTOS, like, reflected so nicely with the lightsaber fights. The character moments with Sabine and Ahsoka. This episode was just so well done. I don't think it's as strong as the finale of season 2 of The Mandalorian, just because, like, the finales of shows usually have the best chance to be great or shit. Like, you don't see many finales just, like, mid. I guess season 3 was, but the Fallen Jedi was a really good episode. I loved it. Up next, we have Shadow Warrior. So this was the Anakin episode. How do I feel about this episode? I think I'm going to put this... It's not S tier. It's just not close to S tier. I think I'm going to put it middle of the pack, A tier. The biggest problem with this episode was the execution of Ahsoka's arc. But, like, I think I understand it. I'm not trying to sound pretentious or whatever. I'm not saying, like, oh, I'm smarter than... I think it executed Ahsoka's arc poorly. But now that I kind of get it, I like it. So I put it in A tier. Like, it's an episode I could rewatch, and it's a lot of fun. Seeing Anakin again. I'm not a prequel guy, but seeing Anakin again was cool. And just the mag... I thought that stuff was really cool. So, yeah, I'm going to put it in A tier. Up next, we have Far, Far Away. A lot of people really loved this episode. I don't think I'd put it in S tier. It was really good, though. I think I'd put it... I'll put it behind. I think I'd rather watch Shadow Warrior again. Seeing Ezra and Thrawn's introductions were great. I liked Ahsoka's moment in the beginning of the episode. The world building of Peridia was okay. There was nothing really great about this episode. Like, there's very few things I could knock it for. But I wouldn't say episode 6 did anything, like, spectacular. Like, episode 4 really did some really good shit. That was redundant. Episode 4 did some really awesome shit. But episode 6 just, like, did a lot of stuff good. I don't think it did anything great. Up next, had some good moments. Had some really good action. I'm gonna cave. I think it was... I'll put it in A tier. Yeah. Like, it had some great action. Again, people shit on the lightsaber fights. I just don't get why. Like, I really enjoyed the lightsaber fights. And there's some good moments with Sabine and Ahsoka and Ezra. Ezra was so well cast. Amon Esfandi did such a good job. I don't think any of the animation to live action actors were terrible. Like, that includes, I guess, Katie Sackhoff with Bo-Katan. It's the same actress, so, like, she automatically gets an A. Then there was Rosario Dawson. Lars Mikkelsen's the same guy. Am I missing anyone else? Like, animation to live action. Hera. Mary Elizabeth Winstead. She did a good job. Like, they all did a good job. But, like, I still have that dissonance. Like, to me, live action Sabine's just not quite the same as animated Sabine. But Amon Esfandi did such a good job with Ezra. Like, it's the closest that I felt between the animated version and live action version, if that makes sense. And the chemistry between her and Ezra was great. Yes, what Matt H said. So yeah. And then last episode, The Jedi, The Witch, and The Warlord. I think I'll put it at the upper end of B tier. It was a fine finale. I think it could have been much better. It was not terrible by any means. I think it ended a little anticlimactically, but just from a plot perspective, I really enjoyed it. The from episode 3 to episode 8 of Ahsoka, I really liked. Like the first 2, I agree, are pretty slow. Did I have them both in? Yeah, I had. Yeah. So I put it at the upper end of B tier. Like to me, there's like, the child in B tier is not like within each tier. The more left, the better, and like obviously the higher row is better. So yeah, that is my thoughts on the finale, and this is my complete list of my rankings of the Mandalorian, or the Mandoverse. Sorry. I wonder if I took an average, which would be at the highest. And I wouldn't do the average of the Mandalorian. I do the average of each individual season. So Boba Fett and Mando 3 did not have any S tier appearances. I don't think Mando 3 had a single A tier appearance. Yeah, Mando 3 was terrible. Boba Fett had one A tier appearance. I should really calculate the averages of this. Tier list for the Mandoverse. Not that big on the finale, but I liked it. Yeah, me too. That's why I think it belongs in B tier. Like, I liked it. B for me is, I liked it. Had problems. Didn't love it. A is like, this is a really good episode. Like, this is a really good episode. Not perfect, but it's really good. And S is like, I don't want to say perfect, but pretty darn close. Ahsoka Season 1 was definitely an improvement over Mando 3 and Boba Fett. Yeah, completely. I think I've stated this on my last stream. Like, on a scale of 1 to 10 ranking, the way I give my letter grades, I think a lot of people assume like 6 is bad, but like 6 to me. So a 10 means it's like perfect and more, like historically great, like awesome, one of my favorites thing ever. 9 is great. 9 is great. Some flaws, some flaws, but 9 is great. 8 is really good. Noticeable flaws, a few, but 8 is mostly really good. 7 is mostly good. It's mostly good, but a good amount of flaws. Like, the good clearly outweighs the bad, but the bad's still noticeable there. Like, 8, there's not much bad. 7, there's some noticeable bad. 6, to me, there's a lot of good, there's a lot of bad, but I kind of enjoyed the good a little bit more. But they're both kind of even. 5, to me, is they're both, like, there's some good, there's some bad. And I don't have any, I'm not really entertained. 4 is a little good, mostly bad. A little good, mostly bad. 3 is just like bad across the board. 2 is like barely competent. Like the fact that a 2 is like Birdemic. If you've ever seen the Birdemic films, like that movie's terrible. So yeah, if I had to rate the Mandalorian, the Mandoverse seasons based off of that description I just gave for my 1 to 10, I'd give Mandalorian season 1 a 9, Mandalorian season 2 a 9, the Book of Boba Fett a 4, so Mando season 3 a 3, and then Ahsoka a 7. So it's like it started off the first 2 like super hot with 2 9s, garbage with 3 and 4, and then like a good with Ahsoka. So it's like kind of balancing out. So yeah, that is my tier list. I'll sit around for another 7 minutes or so and answer some questions if you guys have any. But if not, I am going to wrap up the stream soon. I'm just glad season 2 episode 1 is on top. That episode was delicious. Yeah, it was a really good episode. So Ahsoka season 1 could have been more consistent, but it was still great. Filoni would benefit from a writer's room like the animated shows. Filoni will only improve from here. I hope so. Again, if you saw my video, I think Ahsoka was almost great. Wasn't great. It was just good. It was good, but almost great. That's where I'd put it. What would you rate Andor and Kenobi? Andor is a 10. Andor is so good. Andor is a 10. Obi-Wan Kenobi would be a 5. Maybe a 6 if I'm feeling generous. I'd probably put it at 5. I don't think Obi-Wan's good, but people say it's terrible. I think that's way too harsh. I think I'd give it a 6. Like, I think it had some pretty good moments with Obi-Wan, but there was some pretty bad shit in Obi-Wan. So yeah. What would you rate the Mandoverse as a whole? That's what's tough, because like some of it is so great, some of it's so bad. The Mandoverse as a whole, it's probably a 7 for me. Like, usually good outweighs bad, but the bad can't be ignored. So I think the Mandoverse as a whole is a 7. Even though I think my average, if I average 9, 9, 7, 4, and 3, I think that comes out to like a 6.6, if I had to guess. So yeah. When is the channel's anniversary again? Mine? February 23rd. February 23rd was when I uploaded my first video in 2020. So yeah, 4-year anniversary for the Goldman on February 23rd of 2024. Isn't that crazy? 4 years. Maybe I can get to 100K by then. Do you think Balin will be recast? Yeah, absolutely. Ahsoka did have a good tone, Rod Films. I really liked Ahsoka's tone. So yeah, those are kind of my thoughts. Well, I think my next stream, actually, I was thinking about doing a Disney Plus live action seasons rankings. So like ranking Mando Season 1, Mando Season 2, Book of Boba Fett, Kenobi, Andor, Mando Season 3, and Ahsoka. That's only like 8 things. No, it's 7 things. I may go a bit more in depth in each of my thoughts on that stream, but we'll see what I want to do next week. We'll see. So yeah, I think I'm going to wrap up the stream now. Are you interested in doing a speculation vid for Ahsoka Season 2? I might do a stream. I won't do a speculation vid. That's just not what I do anymore. But anyway, thank you everyone so much for watching.